For shooting macros, you might think that you need a macro lens, but I'm going to show you how you can get even closer to the subject than you can with a macro lens, using nothing more than this £10 reversing ring and an old manual focus lens. A reversing ring allows you to mount a lens onto your camera backwards, so the back bit is pointing towards the subject. Now this may sound a bit mad, but it's actually a great way to get amazing close-ups. This approach does have some limitations, mainly as the lens no longer talks to the camera. This means that you need to do everything manually, and with some cameras you won't even get any metering. But with a static subject and control over the lights, this takes just a few test shots to sort out. So let's start with the lens. The ideal solution is a wide-angle, non-autofocus lens, like this 28mm Nikon lens. Now the shorter the focal length of the lens, the closer you'll be able to get. And also, these lenses have an old-fashioned aperture ring, like this. Because there's no longer any link between the camera and the lens, you need to be able to adjust the aperture directly. The reversing ring itself simply screws into the filter thread of the lens, and then the other side attaches to the camera, just like a normal lens. Now, you need to set the camera on manual exposure and focus, and to start with, make sure that the lens is set to the maximum aperture. I'm also going to attach a cable release and set the mirror lockup mode on my Nikon D7000, as at high magnifications even the slightest movement can cause camera shake. And not all Nikon SLRs have this lockup mode, but even without this, a remote release will still reduce the risk of vibration. With the camera attached to a tripod, I can now move the subject into position. Now this is where things start to get a little fiddly. Because the subject is so small, it takes a while to fine-tune the framing and the focus. Now that looks about right, so now I can add some lights. For this setup, I'm going to use a couple of LED lights designed for use with your laptop, but any small light source will do. As you can see, I've covered one light with red plastic and the other with blue to give it a multicoloured look. So I'm just going to move the lights until they create the mini cityscape effect that I'm after. All I need now is to sort out the exposure. First, I'm going to stop the lens down to f8 to increase the depth of field, and then adjust the shutter speed. At ISO 200, I'm going to start with a shutter speed of 2 seconds and take a test shot. Now that looks a little dark, so I'm going to increase the shutter speed to 3 seconds, which, looking at the histogram, looks about perfect. So now I'm just going to take a few more shots to make sure that I've got the framing and focus spot on. And that's how you get extreme close-ups using a reversing ring.